Welcome to She Is His, a podcast from the Pretty and Wise Collective. Here, we are all about digging into God's Word and sharing real and honest, sometimes ridiculous, stories of faith and growing together in wisdom, grace, and courage. Think of this as your invitation to go grab a cup of coffee, pull up a chair, and join in on the conversation. Together we'll laugh, we're going to learn, and we're going to lean into God's truth so that we can boldly walk as His daughters. New episodes are going to be dropping every other Friday, so don't forget to follow us on social media, or feel free to visit www.prettyandwise.com to stay connected. All right, ladies, let's dive in, let's grow in wisdom, and let's celebrate the beauty of sisterhood in Christ.
Welcome back to the She Is His podcast, episode part 2 of Peacemaking God's Way. We're going to continue on in our conversation today with myself and Tanya Glansman from My Father's Daughter and Gay Idol with Captive Heart, all a part of the Pretty and Wise Collective. And last episode on peacemaking and peacekeeping, we kind of talked about the difference between the two and kind of how to evaluate if you are tending more towards peacekeeping, not rocking the boat, trying to avoid conflict, or peacemaking, which is, conflict but done in a really healthy, biblical, God-honoring way. And today, on today's episode, we're talking primarily more about how the practical side of peacemaking, what that needs to look like. And I'm really excited to wrap up this conversation with Tanya and Gay today. I hope it means a lot to you. I hope it is helpful and encouraging to you. And we also want to let you know that we have included a freebie in today's episode. It'll be in the show notes, but we'll also put it on social media. And it's just like a downloadable worksheet on peacemaking, how to go about that if that's something that you need to implement with a specific person or situation in your life, kind of a guide to how to do that well. So a way to take everything we've talked about, put it in a condensed little written form that will walk you through it. But let's go ahead and continue on in the conversation.
And so if you're struggling with being a peacemaker, or you're struggling against the unhealthy side of peacekeeping, you need people. Yeah. Okay, let me ask you this. What is a healthy peacekeeper? Because you kind of talked about there might be both. So what do you think? What's a happy peacekeeper?
So Romans 12:18 says, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone.
Okay, yeah.
So our healthy motivation at peacekeeping is also our motivation in our methods.
Yes.
And so our motivation should always be love. Yes. Like, if you had a friend who might have at some point told you that you were judgmental, then they weren't in that moment actually avoiding conflict or potential conflict, because that actually could have hurt your feelings or made you mad. I mean, it was a risk for that person who loved you to say that to you because they didn't necessarily know how you were going to respond to that. Our methods in healthy peacekeeping are clear communication and healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
So I think that to avoid confrontation or conflict is unhealthy peacekeeping, right? I did that for years in my marriage because of my own stuff and fear. It was all rooted in fear. And so to become a peacekeeper, to keep the peace now means when an issue arises in my heart and I've gone before the Lord and teased it out with Him to make sure that it's something that does need to be addressed and I'm not just hormonal that day or whatever.
Yeah.
Then with clear communication and with healthy boundaries, I can go to my husband and say, hey, love muffin, this has been brewing in my heart, and to keep the peace between us because I love you so much and I don't want there to be any kind of rift or distance or separation in our oneness. I need to bring this before you so we can talk about it and figure this out.
Yeah.
Maybe peacemaking is when there's been a clear breaking peace. Maybe peacekeeping is, I feel this brewing, or I recognize this and I want to deal with it before it becomes before it becomes an issue, right?
Yeah, peacekeeping also does involve when you already know there's a conflict, because we are called, peacemaking, to make peace. Once you make the peace, you keep the peace by remaining at peace with God and with others, and by dealing with these as they come up, and in a loving way.
Yeah. I think it does. It does. And I feel like I just have to say to my almost 12-year-old now 12-year-old, you were right. You've got to make peace and break peace. But I just kind of brushed off but you were right. Damn. He's so wise.
Yeah.
No, something you said that I feel like is really important, and you talked about, that friend of mine who is that, I don't know, who's called me judgmental. She wasn't my terrible human. She said, well, that sounds really judgmental. Judgy. But I will say this. Was it nice that you said it? No, it didn't feel good. It wasn't but nice is not a fruit of the Spirit. Kindness is. Yet it was kind that you sold that to me. That I'm going to hold up a mirror for you. In God's loving kindness, He's held up a mirror for us in the law, right? That thankfully Christ kept perfectly on our behalf.
That's right.
Because we don't, but we are now clothed in His righteousness. But in His kindness, He held a mirror for us in the law. And in your kindness, you held a mirror for me. And it was me. Okay, it was me. Not you. Definitely not you. No, she called me judgmental, but I honestly, I told another friend that I said, so judgmental, but I have to say, I love friends who are brave enough to be kind to me, even if it might hurt. And it reminds me of that verse in Proverbs that a wound from a friend is better than a kiss from an enemy.
That's right.
And I've held on to that I want to be a friend that in kindness will wound.
That's right.
For your benefit.
Absolutely.
That's a real friend.
Yes. Somebody that will risk their own safety.
Yeah.
Right? Their own protection.
Yeah.
Right. Because you might have been in a really escalated moment.
I might
in that conversation.
Could have been.
And I could have gotten my apple caught out. You could have verbally. Proverbially. You're right. And but I love you so much, and I trust you, and I know you well enough to know that if even in that moment you were upset or hurt or angry with me for that truth, that ultimately you would appreciate it and value it, because you knew the heart of it was love. My heart motivation was love.
Yes. Yeah. I just think that's an important distinction to make. Is I think we've convinced ourselves a lot of times that nice is a fruit of the Spirit, and they're not. No. And nice and kind, while sometimes they do overlap, they're not actually the same thing. And so it's if my son broke a bone and it healed out of alignment, the right thing to do, a doctor in his kindness would come in and have to re-break it and reset it so it heals right. And you were like a friend who's like, yeah, your bone's out of alignment. I got to break it.
Yeah.
Because you're coming to me and saying, I need your help sorting through this. I'm going to have to break your bone. But it's in your kindness that God does that for us too. And spread like that with Job. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? That's God in His kindness reminding Job of his humanity and God being God, and what a gift it is, right? And so that there's a difference, that He's not us.
Yeah.
And so I think that's important in peacekeeping, that I think when we make nice a fruit of the Spirit, we slip into unhealthy peacekeeping.
Well, and let me just piggyback on that. If I wrote down some notes. So unhealthy peacekeeping is to avoid discomfort, preserve personal interest, or keep appearances. It's motivated by fear, and it ignores or suppresses important issues, avoids difficult conversations, and it appeases people to keep the peace. So if you were to call me all upset at your husband, and I knew that probably you were leaning in a direction that wasn't Jesus-y, but I just said, you know what, girl, I know that's wrong. And I can't believe he said that to you either. I can't believe he expects you to whatever. Right. Because I valued my position in your life more than I valued the truth of God's word.
As Christian sisters, we're called to communicate, not commiserate.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
And I feel like it's really, yes, I feel like it's really easy to slip in that worldly way of being a girlfriend. That our friend calls us and we just get on their level and just commiserate. Yeah, they were jerks. I can't believe they said that to you. Like, and that's just, the world glamorizes that. Social media, reels, they glamorize that kind of friendship. And I will say, it might feed something in you, but what it feeds in you is unhealthy and poisonous for your soul.
Yeah. And it's better to come at it as, I understand what you're going through. I've been hurt that way. But let me tell you some truth, because the truth will set you free. That's how.
And we honestly have a responsibility to one another as daughters of God to demonstrate Jesus with skin on when our friend calls us.
Yes.
And that Jesus with skin on is love and truth together, right? So truth without love is mean, right? Love without truth is meaningless. Yes. But love and truth together is meaningful.
Yes. Did you make that up?
I do.
No, I'm sorry, I heard that.
Yes. That's good. I'm going to make it as good. Yes. Yeah. It's really, that's really good.
If I could remember where I heard it, I'd give them credit, but I can't remember the name of the first.
If it's you.
We'll put it in show notes.
All right, well, let me ask you this. Okay, so advice. I have a problem and I need to have a difficult conversation, and I'm going to ask a couple questions. So the first one is I need to have a difficult conversation, and I have a tendency to slip into nice, but this person has harmed me. They sinned against me. We'll put it that way. So we know it's definitely something and I've done all the things. I spent my time with Jesus, but I'm terrified. Yeah. What is your advice to me as your friend?
Well, my advice to you would be to write down the things that you know you need to get out of your heart in that conversation.
Okay.
And to ask the other person who I guess has been willing to meet with you or pick up the phone, face-to-face is always better if it's possible, because body language and facial expression, all of those things are,
people can say yes with their voice and no with their whole body.
Exactly. So write down everything you need to say, especially if you're anxious about the conversation, because it's going to be a difficult conversation. Just say, if you will just bear with me and allow me to read everything I need to get out of my heart so that we can then process it together. And that way you can calm. There's no interjections. There's no interruptions. There's no, but you blog, like us amping it up, which amps it all up. Yeah. And remember that this is from that same person whose name I can't remember, how a conversation will never go any further than the tone in which it begins. So
that was good.
The calmer you are,
or somebody write that down in the other room. Text it to me, but after we're done filming.
The calmer you are, the more kind toned you are, or stabilized you are when you begin a conversation is going to direct the tone. But if you start up here, there's not a whole lot of hope for you. You can't go far with that.
Let me tell you, sometimes, I just had this happen the other day. I'm 66, so I'm still learning a lot. But I'm like, with my husband and I, we're both passionate people. Neither one of us are afraid of conflict. Never had them. Not the greatest combination sometimes. But yet, it was just yesterday, I think. I don't know. He came home and he was telling me something that the doctor said. Well, I disagreed with the doctor. And I got all up in his face before he even finished all of his concerns that he needed to voice to me. And so then he got mad, and so he ended up just he would listen to me, and I'm blinking. I'm Dr. Gay show, yeah. Yes, the one who knows it all right now because I did all the research. But he had to go out to the man cave, and like I said, I don't blame him. But I sat there, and it literally took me a while. I knew we have to separate, we have to calm down, and we can come back together. But I knew it was on me. I had to go back and I went back, I sat right in front of him, and in humility, because I knew I was totally wrong. I didn't even let him get his words out before I just lit into him. And I wasn't mad at him. I was mad at the doctors, but the way I lit into him, it was as if I was mad at him. And so I sat down, and first of all, I said, honey, I'm so sorry. I can't remember exactly what I said, but I basically was saying, I'm sorry, that was wrong. I was trying not to make excuses. That was the biggest thing. I was wrong, and I was just mad at the doctor. And so I got crazy, and I'm sorry, I was wrong. But I really want to hear what you had to say. And his first reaction was, thank you. And I think sometimes we don't realize when we're coming to someone to lay down, this is the problem. This is conflict. We need to resolve this. We need to have peace between us. We don't realize how much our tone of voice going into affects the end result.
That's right.
And it can completely cut off all communication, even if you get a chance to say all the things you want to say, because it's the tone of voice you're coming into. Even if it's not angry at them, you're angry at the situation, it's still, that's so huge, the way you come into it. So I love that. Write it all down, especially if you're not a good arguer. Even with the best of arguers, there's usually one that's more like the lawyer that can obliterate you, and the other one's not quite like that. And so writing down is a really good thing, because you both need to be heard in this situation. You need to be heard.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, now my question is, so that was like, I'm afraid of this, but it's got to be done.
Yeah.
Now I want you to, for the woman who's not afraid of it, and she maybe like me the other week, feeling pretty hot about a situation and ready to handle it, but this chick is not ready. Like, she needs, what is your advice if I'm coming in hot, like this person, and maybe I'm right. But maybe my tone, my attitude, my motivation, my method, all out of whack. So talk to me about that. If you've got a friend who's coming to you, and you got to have one of those moments where maybe you're not as nice, but you're kind, what's your advice?
It's better you do take plenty of time before you go into it. Sometimes God speaks to you in unusual situations. I'm in the outer, sometimes you're not in the midst of the conflict between the two individuals, but you're on the periphery. Yeah, and so I have a situation where I'm on the periphery, and but I'm like a mama bear with the people I love, friends or family or whoever it is, and I first want to just light into whoever it is that's stealing the peace or whatever, is going on. And being on the periphery, you have to force yourself, and especially as a pastor's wife, to sit out and sit back and wait. And there might be you may not even be asked to join into whatever it is, but you cannot allow your attitude to reflect
Anything but Jesus.
anything like Jesus. Yes.
And I think it's important that for the person you're loving,
Yes. Man, time is amazing what it does for you, because it, first of all, just calm you down. It helps you begin to think more clearly. It helps you get more into the Word. It helps you to depend on God, because I can't do anything. I got to depend on you, Lord. What can I do? How can I pray into the situation? And then sometimes in unusual ways, God will come to you. He came to me in a dream, which is so funny because we're talking about this today and it was just last night. And in this dream, I found myself coming alongside and embracing this person who would be difficult, would be extremely difficult. Yeah. But in a very loving way, in a very way of saying, it doesn't matter because I still love you. In a way of saying, and it's not a way of saying, okay, you're right, because honestly, it's way more complicated and there's some very definite wrongs in this situation, but it's not in a way of appeasement, but it is a way of love, of letting down my rights in some sense and putting forth the love of Jesus on them because I can't.
Yeah. I think that
I know that makes sense, but
it does. And I think that hits on something that's really important is in all of this and every conflict we face, whether we're the starter or ender, whether we're the giver or receiver, whatever, we need to remember as women of God what we've been forgiven of.
That's right.
Not to shame us for who we used to be or our stupidity or whatever, but the magnificent grace, the grace so heavy you can barely stand up under the weight of it, that we had been given. How could I not then extend that to this person?
because Jesus loves and embraces us.
And Jesus paid for that sin too.
Yeah,
That's right.
So why am I demanding payment that they make it right by me in my terms of what they need to do to be right or whatever?
Yeah.
Like there is wrongs do need to be righted. Like God is a just God.
there's loving correction.
There's loving correction.
Speaks about.
There's all of that. But to get to that, we first have to have the humility of, I was a sinner who had been saved by the love and blood and sacrifice of Jesus. And I am now completely undeservedly considered a saint. I'm clothed in the righteousness of God instead of my own filthy rags. How could I not extend that to someone else? And that, remembering that, will humble you in like a good way, not a I'm a piece of crap way, but in a grounding way. Yes, to where then, honestly, it diffuses so much of the anger.
Yeah.
So I think just it's hitting me. If I have a friend come to me and they're up here, right, and maybe they have a right to be in the sense of what's right and wrong.
Right.
I think maybe one of my advice alongside both of these things that I think are really important that you guys hit on is remember what you've been saved from.
Yeah, man.
Remember what you've been forgiven of.
Yes.
Bring that to mind right now.
Yeah.
And the Lord will humble you. The Lord, that will satiate your anger pretty quickly. Honestly, if you give an honest look at yourself and who you used to be and what God has done in your life and forgiven in your life, that satiates anger and self-righteousness extremely quickly. And then you can say, all right, I've got grace to give. How could I not?
That's right.
How could I not?
And that goes against everything the world tells us.
Oh, my word, yes.
But Jesus told his disciples, and in essence telling us, because we are his disciples, peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives. Yes. It's his peace. And that's just, it's an oxymoron sort of I don't know, it's the total opposite of what the world's peace is.
Yeah. And I think a final thought for me, because I feel like we might be there, is Romans 12:18. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. And that indicates that sometimes it might not be possible, but you are responsible to look like Jesus, talk like Jesus, think like Jesus, walk like Jesus.
Yep.
And you can do everything you can do to try to make peace and keep peace, as is your responsibility. but you can't take responsibility or ownership for the other person's choices, or actions or response or behavior. And so once we have done what the Lord has asked and required of us to do to live peaceably, then we have to rest in that, and know that we've been obedient to what he's asked us to do. And then the other person, they have that same choice.
Yes. I think there is peace that is found in once you can honestly look in the mirror and say, yeah, I've done all I can to honor the Lord here and to make peace with this situation, this person, this whatever. Because I mean, like sometimes that person dies. Sometimes you lose contact with that person. Sometimes that person is just not receptive. They're not going to be at peace. Sometimes they need therapy.
Yeah.
And
sometimes it needs, there is peacemaking among sisters in Christ and brothers in Christ. And sometimes that requires, if you cannot resolve your conflict, it also does require bringing in others to help you, which not just a girlfriend.
scripture type. So yeah, if you guys can't deal with it, bring in an elder. At that point, like there is biblical guidelines for how to handle things. And so you can definitely check in the epistles, like things Paul wrote in the New Testament. There's loads in there. You can Google this and look it up. We can add some in the show notes, some scriptures to point you to for that. But yes, I think there is peace in just knowing I have been obedient to God here.
That's right.
And there's nothing else I can do.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's an okay place to be. It's now up to God and this person yielding to the Lord.
That's right.
One thing my dad said to me a lot growing up, in especially like my young adult, early ministry, afraid of these kind of, even very mild conflicts I was terrified of early on. And one thing my dad would say often is their response is not your responsibility.
That's right.
That you have to obey God. That's your responsibility. That's to obey God. And so if they don't take it well, if you obey the Lord, that's their issue.
That's right.
But I think
You got to continue to pray for them.
yes,
And that intercede for them.
Yeah.
I will say we can wrap it up here.
Yeah.
But one of the big things in my life in terms of peacemaking, I had a conflict with some people in church leadership years ago that then I was unable to resolve with them. And that was really difficult. And for a short while was really hindering me spiritually, hindering me in moving forward in ministry, was really difficult. And I remember every Sunday I would drive to church by myself because I would get there early to be on the worship team or something. And I would cry the whole way there. And the whole way there, I felt terrible. And the Lord, because the things that these particular people had said in my life would be like on repeat in my head. And so, it just was like tearing me down. And I remember the Lord brought to mind to pray for your enemies and bless those who persecute you.
Right.
Yeah. So I had this issue with these people that I couldn't resolve. Done all I could, and it wasn't resolved. And at this point, we weren't even close to each other in location-wise or anything. So it's not even like we saw each other, and I didn't even see these people. And so I didn't know how to move forward, and the Lord reminded me of that. And so every Sunday, instead of crying the whole way to church, I would pray for these people the whole way to church by name out loud so that my spirit and soul would get in line with the Lord. And so I feel like and honestly, as a rebuttal to the enemy, because he can't read my mind, but here's my word. And so when I am out loud aligning myself with God's heart, like that verse in James, resist the enemy and he will flee. He doesn't know I'm resisting if he can't hear me. And so I had to out loud resist, and how I did that is through prayer for these people and praying blessings on these people who it was really, really, really hard for me at first. I didn't want to pray, God bless them in their ministry. God bless them in their marriage. God bless them with their children. And I got very specific. Lord, would you help them financially this week? Lord, would you, I prayed so much for these people. And then I noticed, it only took a couple months for me, but I noticed after a couple months, I came into church ready. And suddenly in a conversation, one of their names got brought up, and before anytime I hear the name, it's this internal cringe. This, oh, right? Nothing happened. Like I've heard their name and nothing happened, and I noticed I'm not feeling this, and it was then the Lord was like, that's why I want you to pray for your enemies and bless those who persecute you. Because your heart needs to be changed. Yeah. So if you've got a conflict that can be resolved, you've done everything you can to be at peace, and for whatever reason, there's not a pretty little bow wrapped on top now, I would say you need to pray for those who persecute you. You need to bless your enemies out loud. The Lord will change your heart and he will soften you to where this situation doesn't have to rule your emotions and tear you up inside anymore. Start praying for them. That dream of that hug and that embrace, that blessing on that person. And so, so I would say that's where I would start. I would start there. Yeah. I feel like this has really been helpful for me and kind of some things that I'm walking through, helpful for ways that I can talk to my kids about some of these things. These are not just applicable to you. These are great kind of conversations to have with your kids. Because if they grow up knowing how to handle conflict in ways that honor God, like, wow, we're setting them up for success as adults and in their relationships. And so I'm hoping and praying that you're going to take these conversations and take them to the Lord. And how can you talk about it with your kids? Or how can you be the friend that will be kind and not always nice? And all the things. And I'm excited for our next podcast and what we're going to be talking about. We hope you'll come back and join us. But we're praying that this is a great catalyst for you and your relationship with Jesus and ushering more peace into your life. So we will see you next time.
Another really powerful, informative, and encouraging episode from the She's His podcast team. And it was really good for me to be able to talk through this with other people who love Jesus and have wisdom when it comes to relationships and navigating hardships and conflict. And so I would encourage you, find some friends who love Jesus that have some wisdom in this area that you can, in a safe way that doesn't foster gossip or, other kind of icky stuff that we don't really want to participate in as daughters of God, but a way that will encourage you, give you some insight, but have those conversations with people about this specific topic. And I would love to hear more from you on maybe how this episode ministered to you, encouraged you, helped you, your own story when it comes to peacemaking or anything like that. Would love for you to share that with us. You can message us on the She's His podcast Facebook page, our Instagram page, or you can go over to our website and shoot us a message at prettyandwise.com. We'll see you next time.